Hello friends, and thank you so much for coming back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Lane, and today we're actually going to play a game of Mistaken Identity. So, there are several characters across the Pokemon universe that look similar, have similar motives to other characters, and I think that they could be the same person, just acting under a different name. So, this is actually what inspired my timeline theory for the Pokemon, like what I've been doing on this channel so far. So, go ahead, watch those videos to see how we get here. I was going to do like a top 10, but this first one I'm going to cover actually had a lot of supporting evidence, so I wanted to go ahead and give it its own video. So go ahead, like, subscribe, comment, watch the other channel, watch the other video to go ahead and get an idea of the timeline that I'm going to be referencing in this video. And with that, let's get started. Alright, so like I said, I am actually going to go ahead and do this video just as one of the comparisons. I was going to do a top 10 just because I wanted to include as much information as I could, but there was just so much evidence to support that these two characters are in fact the same person, so I decided to make it its own video. So what we are going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the evidence, and then I'm going to go ahead and give a theory about how this could all work together, or how these two characters could be the same person, or why they changed their name. So that was weird. So, with that, the two characters that we are going to be comparing are going to be the champion of the Sinnoh region in Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Brilliant Diamond, and Shining Pearl, that being Cynthia, and the Elder from Legends Arceus, Cogita. So with that, now let's get officially started. So let's start with the obvious. They look really similar. They have the same facial features, they have the same outfit, and I can hear you saying, oh, well, characters look alike in this game, that's how we know that they're descended from each other. But, I mean, there's differences between these characters. Like, Arizu and Mars don't look one-to-one, and Perrin and Adaman don't look one-to-one. They look similar enough for us to know that they're related without them actually copying each other one-to-one. Cynthia and Cogita don't really do that. Down to almost a perfect form, Cogita looks like an older Cynthia. So with this, let's also talk about Cogita's team in game. Oh wait, she doesn't have one. She only has one Pokemon that we know of that is a friend to her, and that being the God of Spring, Enamorus. But someone who does have a near identical team to Cynthia is Volo, with there being only one Pokemon different. That being, he uses an Arcanine instead of a Milotic, but Milotic wasn't really available in Legends Arceus, so I could see why they made that change, and it also kind of completes the well-roundedness of Volo's team. Now, in Legends Arceus, people usually only replicate one Pokemon. Like with Wulfric and Garrick, they both use different forms of Avalugg. Or Arizu and Mars, they both use Purugly at some point in their journey. But they don't use the entire team, or nearly the entire team, like that. In addition to this, there are only a few number of people that we are told of in the Pokemon world that know a certain piece of history. As revealed by Cynthia and a hiker in a cabin, the Sinjoh ruins are the remains of a temple created hundreds of years ago by two groups of humans. One who had come from Sinnoh, the other who had hailed from Johto, or specifically the ruins of Alph. Because of this, the ruins contain elements of both Spear Pillar and ruins of Alph, as a sign of the two blending cultures. It is unknown what brought the two clans together to build this temple for Arceus, but this probably has to deal with the underlying relationship between Arceus and Unknown. So at the time of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, only 3 people are confirmed to know about the existence of the Sinjoh ruins, that being the player, Cynthia, and this random hiker. It isn't known for sure, but heavily implied that Cogita is the author of the old verses that appear in Legends Arceus. One of these old verses mentions Sinjoh, stating, "Wintry, austere, brimming with strange power. Certainly the land of Hisui bears some resemblance to Sinjoh. Here where the ancient people of Sinnoh were born, I will spend an eternity, until the one with the mission appears." In the old verses, the author describes himself as waiting an eternity for the one with the mission, which mirrors Cogita's description. In addition, the author describes a friendship with the God of Spring, mirroring Cogita's friendship with Enamorus. So from what we know in the Pokemon universe, there are only 4 characters who have ever mentioned or seen Sinjoh. That being, of course, Cogita, Cynthia, the player, and this random hiker. Still don't know who he is. But what's his story? Like, what's going on with him? So theory time. What if Cynthia and the player of Heart Gold and Soul Silver were actually sent back in time to the events happening in Sinjoh at the Sinjoh ruins? I know that the player can travel to and from the Sinjoh ruins by using the hiker and his Abra, but hear me out. The events here play out and the player leaves with the man and his Abra. Cynthia doesn't leave. We actually don't know what she does at the Sinjoh ruins or where she goes after, how she got there. There's a lot of unanswered questions after this event. When she is finished with her research here, she travels back home, unaware of her being in a different time period, to find out that her hometown of Celestic Town is no longer there, instead being inhabited by the Celestic people, or the original inhabitants of Sinnoh. She sets up the ancient retreat and builds a life for herself along with these people, adopting their culture. She meets a man and she then has a child, who we know as Volo. She tells her son stories of her past, inspiring his Pokemon team in the future, with the only Pokemon not being included is the Pokemon he can't catch, Milotic, since it's not available in this game. She also inspired his obsession with Giratina and Arceus, hearing stories about her past from the Distortion World in the Sinjoh ruins. She's the only character in the game that we know that has seen both of these Pokemon canonically. So then we know that she is one of the last remaining people of the Celestic tribe at the event of Legends Arceus. So in my mind, yes, it is completely possible that these two characters are the same person, just with some time travel and timeline shenanigans, but what else is new in the Pokemon world? Okay, so let's talk about the timeline, just because there's always going to be shenanigans and plot holes when the timeline is ever messed with or brought up, which is something I should be completely aware of because I've made 6 videos on the timeline. So let's get to work. So this is the current timeline that we're working with. It will be updated next week. And here are the points in the timeline where Cynthia does appear as part of the story or just in the game. So as we can see, Cynthia does appear at the latest in the events of Alola, being a participant in the battle tree. So is it possible that she was taken from after the events of Alola and moved back before the events of Legends Arceus? I mean, potentially. Hisui is kind of a melting pot for people coming from different time periods, with the player and Ingo being here. If I had a nickel for every time a character was brought back in time to Legends Arceus, I'd only have 2 nickels, but it's weird to happen twice. So Ingo was picked up from a different period in our timeline than our player, and they didn't even emerge from the space-time distortion at the same time either. So Ingo came out from this point in our timeline after Black 2 and White 2, and was sent prior to the events of Legends. The player was picked up directly after the events of Sinnoh, and even kickstarted the events of Legends Arceus. So who's to say that Cynthia didn't make it all the way in our timeline to Alola, and then was sent back even farther in time to where the events just happened in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, then lived out her life in the ancient past. Just some food for thought. So once again, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I definitely have other characters in this that I would love to talk about and discuss, so let me know what you guys are thinking about that. Like the video, comment your thoughts, give me some feedback. I'd love to hear your feedback. So yeah, with that, you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.